5, 6, 7, 8.
Spotlight.
On stage at MMT.
Spotlight.
I meet the cast, crew, and company.
Spotlight.
Sit back,
On
relax,
stage
and
tonight.
give us a
Spotlight on stage at
MMT. Welcome back to Spotlight on Stage. This episode, we've got Eddie and Allie. So we've got our at-home viewers back there in that camera. Will you two introduce yourselves to everyone who's watching?
My name is Eddie Honan. I have been a company member since the theater was built. I did shows in the park for a few years. I have been I've been involved at least in over 30 shows here, which is kind of crazy.
It is.
When you really think about it,
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. That's about it, I guess.
And I'm Allie McMullen. I have been a company member for like 2 years, I think it counts like now.
Yeah.
And have been doing shows at the theater since it opened and in the park before that.
So, welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
you for doing this today. Why don't you each tell us and the audience what your first show was with our production company, whether it be DPAC or MMT, and kind of how you heard about it or what prompted you to come to the audition.
Well, my first show was A Christmas Carol back at, what is the name of the school?
It was the high school, right?
Yeah.
South Hunterdon.
Yeah.
South Hunterdon. Yeah.
And I was one of, the bankers and a fezziwig ballroom dancer guy.
You have since graduated.
Yes, and now I am fezziwig. But my first show in the park was Jesus Christ Superstar, where I played Herod, and I said, Jesus.
Still one of my favorite line readings ever. My favorite Honan line readings.
And it's such a thrill to be able to work with you guys because you do such great stuff, and it's awesome. Thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you. And Allie, same question.
My first show was at DPAC. It was Secret Garden, and I got involved with it because one of my best friends, Jen Fisher, who is also a company member, she had done shows the summer before, and we had been doing shows at a different theater, and she was like, come with me to this audition for their summer season, and that was my first show.
Come with me.
Yeah, and then at the end of the season, someone, I guess, dropped out of Drood, and then you guys asked me to do Drood.
That's right.
And then I was totally hooked on it.
Yeah.
I'd never been asked to be in a show before. It was always, can I please be in your show? And then most of the times it was no. And then you guys asked me. I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to go anywhere else.
Well, we have loved you always, Allie. And I have said, and people will back me up in my circle, that there's just something about your voice that I love. I could listen to you sing the phone book. So we are happy to have you. Can you tell everyone what your theater experience was before working with us?
So I did, as so many girls did, lots of productions of Annie in like churches and things when I was really little. Didn't really get much into community theater. Did like school shows and things. And then after I graduated college, I started doing community theater. Auditioned a whole bunch, and a lot of times it didn't really amount to a whole lot. There's not really a lot of theaters that are like this. A lot of theaters are very, very cliquey, and they pick their friends on who are going to be in shows. So at this point, I am just, we call ourselves house cats.
Yeah.
This is the only place that we do shows.
We will welcome all the cats.
Though we will not be in Cats. We are not dancers.
No.
Well, listen, never say never.
Unless I have a makeup artist.
Yeah.
Doing it for me.
I never thought I would be a cat either, and lo and behold, there are pictures to prove it. So,
I had been doing community theater since I was, 12 or so. I'd been taking dance lessons since I was like 8. I know no one would probably believe that. but
I've seen the pictures to prove it.
yeah. And I majored in theater at college, but mainly focusing on writing. And I kind of took like 9 years off. And then when I found this place and I realized, oh, you only rehearse 2 weeks, sign me up. Which I love because it's like, just get it done. You know? Just,
Yeah.
We can do it. We can do it in 2 weeks. You can.
Yeah, do the homework.
Yeah.
Come ready to go.
Yeah. Like, especially, like when we did Spelling Bee, I think like 5 of the 9 of us came in completely off book
Oh, yeah.
already. Which
Is a tough show, number one, to do because you're spelling words the whole time. So to come in off book is a feat in itself. But it's the truth. We've talked about it before with other interviews. But we trust everyone that comes here to work, and everyone that comes here, we hope trusts us to do the best that everyone can do.
Just in case anyone at home may not be familiar with the term off book, it means that you show up and you are completely memorized. For those watching who may not be performers, so you are both in Spelling Bee, correct?
yes.
What other shows have you done together here?
Christmas Carol, Shrek.
Right, going way back.
Christmas Carol, Shrek.
Joseph.
Joseph.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
Which you didn't want to do, Edward.
That is true.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is true, but it's only because I'd done it 4 times already,
I get you.
and I was like, oh, no more Joseph. And thank God you guys convinced me to do Joseph.
And then
Trust.
you technically were kind of part of Aida because you did Spot for Aida.
Yeah.
So.
Spot for Aida for the whole run.
Yeah.
Oh, and the concert when we did
Songs of the Silver Screen
Yes.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, we did Songs of Silver Screen. Yep.
So that brings up an interesting point. One of our other company members who we interviewed earlier also brought up the fact that he had run Spot. It's part of, when you're part of the company, not only do you get the opportunity to perform, obviously, but sometimes we need help off stage, whether it be being a deckhand or sometimes assistant stage managing or running the spotlight. Some of our company members run sound for children's theater. So it's not just performing that the company gets to do here. There are other technical things that they do, as well as the community things, whether it be caroling, which I know you guys have done, or some other events that happen throughout the community. We utilize our company members to go and represent us in those instances. So being a company member is something that's not just about performing. So I think that's important for everyone at home to know.
When you're not performing. Oh, sorry, Eddie.
No, so I was just going to say, I think running Spot is actually so fun because, I'm probably not really good at it, but like I got to see Spam-A-Lot like 5 times. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got to see Little Women like 4 times, and
Yeah.
it's just fun.
And now you know how to run
Well,
a
you are
spotlight.
part of the show.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of the show. For anyone that doesn't understand what running spotlight means, it doesn't just mean like, sitting up there and pointing the spotlight. You have to almost anticipate the actors moving before they're even thinking about doing it, because if the spotlight is off, you notice as an audience member. If the spotlight is on and running smoothly, you shouldn't notice it at all.
Correct.
Which,
A lot of finesse in
is.
Spot. A lot of finesse. So we've touched a little bit on kind of the theatrical aspect of what you guys have done here. Why don't you tell the people at home what you do in your daily life as a day job?
So I am a kindergarten teacher, and I feel like that just is me through and through. Like that is, if anyone has ever known me, I'm just all about kids and getting goofy and singing silly songs. And it's honestly one of my kids the other day was like, "Miss McMullen, are you a showgirl?" Just because we do so much singing and like so much of just any type of teaching is
yes,
performing.
the answer is yes,
Yes.
little kid.
You just have to be up there and always full of energy, and so much of that like really does transfer into just being on stage. I feel like there's so much
Sure,
there,
it's
like a back and
entertainment.
forth.
Well,
And then on top of it, baking. I
Yes.
love to bake, and we have like our own little like side operation. Yes. So he finds out what kind we like to bake for other people. So he finds out what everyone likes as their favorite baked treat and relays it to me, and then I create a recipe and then we deliver it together. So that's our little like side hack.
Secret.
Yes.
Secret elves
Yes.
delivering.
So I
Sweet
have
treats.
to jump in and ask you, Allie, like, how has teaching been for you during the pandemic?
It has been it's been a lot. It is so rewarding to be able to see the kids and to be able to give them that consistency and to be able to just connect with them, because so many of them, especially in kindergarten, a lot of them come to me from a preschool program, and a lot of them didn't have that. They just never got started, or they got started and then it was cut short. So a lot of them just
Yeah.
never were in school. So getting to connect with them in some kind of way is really great. It is definitely very, very different being on screen with the kids instead of in the classroom, or the kids that I am in the classroom with, having them each at their own separate desk and not being able to play with toys when they're in the classroom, and having to be like the mask police is definitely, it's tough, and it takes a little bit more of an emotional toll than I ever thought it would.
Sure.
That I was just like, oh yes, we're getting back into the classroom, but there's so many different things that just make it a completely different experience. So some days are a lot easier than others, but I am just so very lucky that I still get to see these kids and I still get to see how they grow and provide some kind of like stability for them in these crazy times. Plus, I mean, you can't be mad about having a consistent job the entire way through this pandemic,
Sure.
because that's something that a lot of people can't say.
That's very true. Now, Ed, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience? You used to work in casting, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So why don't you tell everyone at home what that entailed and what kind of, when the point became that you thought maybe I'm going to transition out of this, and kind of how you ended up here.
Yes. So I started casting as an intern at Telsey in maybe 2005. And I worked on a lot of Broadway shows. And then I moved to another casting office where I mainly did commercials. I did tons of the most famous ones you'd know are like the Geico ones or the Swiffer ones, where they're like, they pretend to drop a box off at a family's house and they're like, what's this at our door? Or the Progresso, like, can you hear me? Talking into the cans. And it was great fun. I met a lot of cool people. I worked with a lot of awesome directors and actors. But it just kind of wasn't the world for me. It's a little too intense for my vibe.
And were you living in the city then?
No, I was living in North Jersey.
Okay.
So I was just commuting in, but it wasn't a very long commute. Well, sometimes it would be long, but it was only about 8 miles.
Right, but it could take up to 3 hours.
Yeah.
On time of day and time of year.
Yeah.
No, it's living in the city, working in the city, whatevering in the city is tough. It really is. And we are glad, certainly, that you ended up not living in the city.
Well, thank
that
you.
You're here playing with us.
I honestly, when I was 30, I said, I have like 2 friends. I'm good. And then I came down here and met all of you. And I was like, how could I have ever lived my life without all of these people? So thank you, both.
Well, thank
Now you have
you.
many more than 2 friends.
Many more. I have
That's
at
so
least
true.
I have at least 4.
At least, yeah.
So many more
If you
adoring
include
fans.
the plant, that's 4.
Right.
And yeah, the plant. A107.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you each what your favorite production that you were a part of for us, for either Deepak or Music Mountain.
It's funny, we were talking about this
Mm-hmm.
on the way over, and I was saying it's hard to choose because so many of them are so different and they like stick in your mind for different reasons. But Spelling Bee has a very special place in our heart. It was just It was a very small cast. Every single show was so different, and it was essentially us on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
So very much of my personality was in that character, and so much of his personality was in his
Yeah.
character.
Lugubrious.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have to say Spelling Bee. My other, I am so grateful that I got to play Billis, because I was that weirdo 4-year-old watching the VHS of South Pacific saying, "I want to be Billis," and it took 33 years,
But you did it.
but I did it, and it was also a breakthrough moment because it was like, I'm actually shirtless on stage.
Big deal.
And of course, I would be remiss to not mention Max Bialystock,
Of course.
which
Indeed. Which you won an award for.
Yeah. Yes. First annual
Mountie Award
Mountie.
winning.
Indeed.
Shameless.
So I think the next question that we have for you is, what show from the audience, that something that you watched here that maybe you didn't anticipate liking, or maybe you didn't know that much about, and it just kind of stuck with you for whatever reason?
Sure. I would probably say the best show that I saw from the audience was Will Rogers Follies. I loved it. I was completely enamored with it from start to finish. And Lewis, you were just ridiculously good.
Well, thank you.
Um,
It's a great show.
it really is. And I didn't know it. I had watched it on YouTube with Keith Carradine, and that was great fun. But I just didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I thought, like, yeah, obviously I'm going to come see this, but it was just so fun. It was just like I was laughing the whole time and having such a great time.
It's a
And
great
just like
show.
visually, it was such a nice
Yeah.
spectacle.
Yeah.
For me, I would probably say Wait Until Dark.
Love it.
I am not a play person. I always say I'm not a play person. I again, the kindergarten teacher in me is like, I want to see people happy and dancing and having fun. And when I heard what it was, I'm like, a blind girl and people are like trying to kill her. That sounds really intense. And it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. And it didn't, I was thinking, oh man, it's going to be long because there's no songs to break it up. Nope.
Right.
It really is one of those things that sort of just opened my perspective a little bit. Maybe not all plays are things that you
Yes.
need to avoid. And then again, on the plays, I would also say Laramie, because I had seen Laramie when my brother was in college. He did it. And I was still in high school when I saw it. So it just had a very different impact when I saw it here, that as a teacher and just as an adult, some of the things that are said and some of the testimonials hit a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
I remember our car ride home, we had such a discussion, and it was just one of those things that I feel like this year has been a lot just for everyone of just sitting back and reflecting and being like, these are things that we don't usually talk about, but there are things that really shouldn't be swept under the rug, and it's okay to be uncomfortable sometimes and just talk about it. And because we watched that show, we had one of those conversations, and just it was nice just opening up about those kind of things and our feelings about how crazy there still is injustice in the
Yeah.
world. So yeah.
Yeah, I to add to that, I would say, Laramie was one of those plays that you see it, and for weeks after, it's still stuck in your head, and it was really fantastic here. I think I saw it 3 times or something.
Is a great cast. It's again one of those shows where
Yeah.
it's a small group of people performing, similar to Spelling Bee. They are realistic characters, but Spelling Bee is you can say it's a lot more lighthearted and it is a musical, but it also has these dark inner qualities where these struggling adults or young people are dealing with realistic things. So you can connect with them, and it does become very realistic. Laramie is very similar in that cast became very bonded over this real event that happened, and then the text that came out of it for this play, they were uncomfortable about. They didn't know what to think. Molly, who was the director, kind of helped them talk about it and be open about it, and this is what we should be feeling. And so it's pretty interesting when you've got the small cast together.
It's interesting because you can say from one perspective, oh, doing a musical is so much harder than doing a play because you have to be able to sing and you have to be able to dance and you're still acting, which is all very true. But then you can just flip it and say it's so much harder doing a play than it is to do a musical because all you have is the character and the words. There's no getting around it. You don't get a break. You mentioned earlier there's no songs to kind of like give you a break. You have to be like in it full throttle for the whole time. And going back to something like Wait Until Dark, it is very intense. There are slow moments certainly, but there are extremely intense moments. And I would never, I love doing plays, and I started doing like 100% musicals. And then as I got older, I started doing plays, and I think you get something different from, performing in a play as to performing in a musical. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that you do. A few years back, I did a production of Dancing at Lunasa, and it's completely different to have to just rely on the text only. And it's not like, well, I can sell them on this time step,
Right. Yeah, no, it's very true.
And it's like when we did Shakespeare Abridged, and it was just the three of us and 4,000 props, and
4,000 words,
right,
and
and
all the
4,000
text, all the
words,
Shakespearean words.
and somehow I'm Hamlet, and just being able to I think in ways that you almost, especially like in a show like when we did that, you have to have more of a trust and a reliance on the people.
Yeah.
And that's feeds back to what you were saying about Laramie.
Yeah,
You
that's the
know?
truth.
It's interesting that you say that because you're the second interview that we're doing that the word trust has come up. And I think that that's yet another thing that maybe people at home don't necessarily understand is you don't just come here and do what we tell you to do. We want input from you too. So it's not just the actors have to trust that we're going to keep, them safe and in a space that they feel comfortable to create, but we need to trust the people that we're bringing in as well. Not only that they're going to show up on time and that they're going to be dependable enough, which obviously all of our company members, that goes without saying, but we have a lot of actors that are not company members, especially when you're taking a chance on someone who maybe has not done a performance with us yet and is used to the more typical community theater scheduling. It's a risk. And people say to us all the time, the first time they're here, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And we say to them, yes, you will. Just do what we're telling you to do. And you can. And then, it opens and they're like, I'm never going back the other way again. I don't know if you want to like kind of, again, expand upon that idea at all.
Well, the only thing that I was just it's a little bit off topic, but when you were talking about trust, it just like the third facet to that is just like trusting the other people that you're on
Very
stage
good
with.
point.
And the biggest, like obviously for us as we've gotten much closer with each other as a company and just from doing shows here for a while, like you get to know the other people that you're with very well and you trust them. But I know that for me, when I did Jesus Christ Superstar, there's so much that we were trying to convey in that show and such very, I would say like intimate, places in ourselves that we were trying to get out. And we spent a lot of time just talking about how the only way that you can be that vulnerable is when you're really comfortable with the people that you're with. And that's the one thing about the 2-week process that can sometimes be difficult, that when you're trying to build that level of comfort, you don't really know the other person. So you're like, well, I don't want to put my heart out there if
Yeah.
you're going to like laugh at me or you're going to take it in a completely different direction. And I think that's another thing about just being here that's been so great is that you really allow for that to happen, and you foster that kind of environment. I don't know that I've ever been in a situation here where I felt like, oh, well, I'm just not going to, because if I take that step, somebody might laugh or somebody might be like, oh, well, what was she doing? That's ridiculous. That just wouldn't be allowed by not only the staff here. No one would allow that to happen. It's just a safe space. But also the other actors that are here
Absolutely.
would be like, who are you to say that? Why would
Right.
you do that? This is one of our own. There really is a sense of family here. And that's one of the reasons I think that the production values are at the level that they are, is because of that trust between actors to staff, staff to actors, and actors between each other.
That's a great point, and it's very nice to hear that. So we're glad that you feel that way. For those of you watching from home, Allie was referring to the all-female Jesus Christ Superstar, which we touched on a few episodes ago with Jen Shao, which was a unique experience, I think, for all of those ladies that were involved in that, and a wonderful one.
Next question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
How about give us a show that we have not yet produced that you would like to see? us work on?
Easy. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Yeah, we know.
Never heard that suggestion from you, Edward.
Also crazy for you.
Okay. Allie?
I am a sucker for Sound of Music, and I don't know if you've done it in the park before, but that it just was my mom's favorite show. I grew up doing it, and then in high school it was like the show that we did when I was a senior. So that's just one I would love to see, whether I'm in it or not. I would just love to see it back on stage.
Hear the hills are alive.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
The Sound of Music is great. We did produce it once at the park, and we also produced Crazy for You once at the park, but they have not made their way indoors yet.
Yet.
But they both will at some point. So.
I'm sure.
So this next question is kind of multifaceted. What we want to ask is, given the time commitment that it does take, when you're working on a show, especially even though it's condensed time, it's more concentrated. So you're here, the rehearsals are more frequent, certainly. So what is it about performing, not necessarily just here, but what is it about performing that keeps bringing you back to doing it, to giving your time, and to giving, as Allie kind of alluded to before, giving so much of yourself to the audiences that come to the theater? I mean, we don't pay you guys yet, and it's a lot that we ask a lot of you, and we recognize that. So what is it that keeps you kind of giving so much of yourselves?
That's a hard question. I think, if you want to go first.
So for me, I've always loved music. It's always been something I've just always loved singing. But being on stage is very different. I am very much an internal person and an introvert through and through. And there's a lot of times when I either can't express what I am feeling, or it's easier for me to just go on and be a happy kindergarten teacher. And sometimes it's nice to be able to let out everything. And this is definitely an outlet to do that. And it's just, there's no feeling like when you're on stage and you're singing something and you're completely connected and the people in the audience are completely connected.
They're with you.
Yeah, exactly. I would drive hours for the opportunity to do that. So for me, it's an easy time commitment when it comes to that.
I think it's weird, but I think I'm inherently a storyteller, and so I like to get on stage and tell those stories. Because even when I'm not on stage, I'm you can ask her, just like telling tales.
Oh yes.
And I'm always like, that's the last story I got, but it's not.
Never
And
is.
I think it's just like, the half leprechaun in me. I want to be a little hooligan on stage, and I love the applause, and I love the feeling of making those people, even if only for like 2 hours, just a touch happier.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah.
And again, it is so missed on both sides of the table. We miss doing it for people, and people miss seeing live theater, because it really is a connection between audience and performers that you don't really get anywhere else necessarily. At least in that environment. I mean, you certainly get a connection with your students, but
Oh, it's so different though.
Yeah.
Like, and the different like feelings and even roles that you can explore being on
Yeah.
stage. Like as a teacher, I am the teacher. I can't be like the mean villain of the
Right,
story.
right.
Can't be
When-
Olive.
Yeah, I can't be Olive. I can't be Rizzo with a bunch of 5-year-olds. So yeah, that no matter what your other like day job is, it's not the same. It's just not the same as this.
it's a unique thing, and we can't wait to get
Yeah.
back to doing it. So we have a couple of specific things that we want to kind of touch on with you guys. First of which, this goes to you, Ed. Jordan particularly wanted you to elaborate on your experience as the man who wore many hats in our production of Ragtime at the park.
Literally many hats.
Yeah. The ragtime that was in concert.
I know.
So let me let everyone know. We did a production of Ragtime in concert at the Open Air Theater in 2017. It was our kind of extension on our park years, because we had intended to open this building in 2017, and then it got postponed just due to the construction of it. So we said, let's do a short mini season at the park. We'll do some easy things that we've done before, things that will still bring people in and still will interest our actors. And Ragtime was one that we've never gotten to do. So we said, let's just do it, but let's do it in concert so that it's easier to put up. It's minimal set and not a lot of costume changes and no choreography. Maybe even just like do it with books in hands and just with microphones, which is not how it turned out at all.
Listen, it is no secret that I overcomplicate things. I'll be honest about that.
So when casting this concert version of Ragtime, we didn't compensate for the idea that we need many characters. So when you look at the adult men in the cast, there was Lewis and there was Eddie in the ensemble.
Did we need anybody else?
No, nope.
There were a few more.
As we proved during Shakespeare.
There were a few more men, but again, Eddie played many different roles in that show, and the distinguishing characteristics came with his hats that we gave him to change into.
Yeah, I had, first off, I was given a white suit, which is another amazing thing about this theater. Jordan just hands me a full white suit, and it not only fit perfectly, but like literally didn't need to be hemmed or anything. So that was insane.
It's
I
a
don't
gift.
know. I don't know how that happens, but yeah, I loved doing that. I love whenever I'm in the ensemble, like I prefer it to be like that, or like Annie, where I get to be like 6 different weirdo people. Like that's what's fun. Yeah, because you get to do different voices and whatnot. And yeah, Ragtime is such a beautiful show. I mean,
Yes.
singing that score was ridiculous. But yeah, it was very funny because I just had one white suit the entire time. I had a yellow tie, and my dressing room area, which was not even inside the dressing room. It was that little like hut next to it.
Yeah.
It was like just like 6 hats on nails on the wall.
for all of Eddie's characters. But I'll never forget it. You know, we could talk forever about Max Bialystock,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's true
the man
though.
of many hats.
And that's a great point. It's like, both of you have played leading roles for us, and both of you have been in ensembles for us. And I don't, you may agree or disagree with me, but I spent many years in the ensemble when I was pursuing a professional career, and it's hard. It is hard work. Not that being out front isn't hard as well, but it's just different. You have to be so much more adaptable, I think, as an ensemble member than you do as a very scripted character, because you're essentially making up your own story in the ensemble as to why you're there and who you know, and that all relies on you as a performer. You're not given that in the text. So I think, I think it's a wonderful thing that people will come out and be Fiona, or they'll come out and be Max Bialystock, but then they will also be in, the ensemble of Secret Garden to sing that beautiful score, or in the ensemble of Ragtime to sing that beautiful score. I think it's a great thing that our people specifically are willing to do that. And I think part of it too is because they know that no matter where they fall, it's going to be something, hopefully, that they are proud to present to audiences.
And I also think it's going to be a positive experience. There have been a lot of times where you can be in an ensemble where everybody in the ensemble is just so mad that they're not the person who's up front as the lead. And that is really, at least in my experience, has not ever been the case here, that everyone is just so excited to be doing whatever you're doing. And the choreography that you get to do in the ensemble, especially as someone who's a non-dancer, it's always fun. It's always fun to be in the ensemble because then you get to do, try out different kinds of choreography. I never would have danced like what I had to do in Aida if I wasn't in the ensemble. And again, singing that kind of music, I'm not going to be one of those leads, but I want to be part of the show. And when everyone who's in the ensemble is committed to putting on a good show, that really, it makes it so much easier for whoever's the lead to do their job, and it makes the whole production so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really also a testament to the community you guys have created, because, everyone seems to be cool with, oh, I'm ensemble sometimes, oh, I'm the lead sometimes, and it doesn't matter because I'm with people that I love and, doing something I love. And I think that's really cool, And
I think coming from our perspective, it makes the shows really strong when you have people that are capable of doing both and doing both well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't look at our ensemble and say, okay, we'll just put this person in the ensemble. We're not hiding people in our ensembles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We want everyone to kind of rise to the challenge, and it just gives a stronger production, at the end. And it's going back to something that Allie said about how, we don't have people who are we've had a few, who maybe aren't the happiest with what they're playing. But for the most part, I think you're right. And I have to wonder, this thought just occurred to me, is, if I'm spending 3 months rehearsing something twice or 3 times a week, I'm spending a lot of time with these people. I'm getting aggravated because maybe things aren't progressing the way I want them. And maybe I start to dislike people because of I'm spending too much time with them. Because, everyone here is big personalities, and we're not always all going to get along, Sure. That's the way it goes. But I think the process is so quick here, and it's so concentrated that you're like, oh, she gets on my nerves, but I don't have time to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to wonder if that has something to do with it or not. Where are we? Okay. So I'm going to jump over to Allie for a moment. We mentioned Ragtime for Eddie. I want to kind of circle back to Fiona for you, because that's, I think, the first role that you played for us. You're also one of the ghosts in our Christmas Carol now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because was that your second season?
That was my second season.
Year 2 for you.
So Fiona was a complete surprise. I after doing the first season, like I said, I'd never been asked to be in a show. So I was like, I will do whatever they want. I will just be in any show. And I like just checked off whatever. And I was just like, whatever you put me in, I'm going to be happy. And then I remember I got the email, would you send in a video singing for Fiona? And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started watching the videos, and I love Sutton Foster. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I could really do this. And it was so fun because it was a chance to be a lead, which I really had very little experience doing before then. I hadn't had a lot of people who had, like we said, hadn't really trusted me to take that kind of role. So I really was so excited about it. And then on top of it, it's a fairy tale. So there's a lot of kids. And then afterwards, like being in like the princess gear afterwards, like meeting the kids. But the other like very untheater related note of it is that's how I became a redhead, because I wore the wig and I was like, man, I just love this red hair. So really, Fiona was a big deal for so many reasons. It was a great, like, I feel like it was like a coming out process.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Like getting a chance to like do a lead and pretend I knew how to tap.
Oh, you did a great job.
Now I want to be able to do that again to just show I actually do know some tap now.
Well, and that's really interesting because we're not just about doing the shows. Like Allie just brought up that maybe she was a little insecure about her tapping and she was playing a role where she was out front tapping. And I've had Allie in tap class. Mm-hmm. I've had Eddie in tap class. We just all want to kind of continue getting stronger and better at what we do. And I think that's something that we try and impress upon people here. Even us, we're learning how to, he's doing things on Instagram for the business. I mean, we're constantly trying to kind of push ourselves to make sure that this place operates as strongly and as best as it can. So that's actually a really interesting idea. And the thing about the wigs is you'd be surprised as how many times we've heard that.
Really?
Put the wig on the girl and she's like, ooh. And then she comes into rehearsal next week and she's got
Do you know, I'll tell a little short story. Jen Gursky, who many of us know.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Jen. She played Polly Baker when we did Crazy for You Outside. Mm-hmm. We gave her a wig that was kind of a blondish wig, but it was like honey. It had some highlights in it. Very like loose curl, pretty wig. A couple months later, she emails or texts us and says, can I borrow that wig? I have to take it to my hairdresser. I want those highlights. And she borrowed the wig. She took it to her hairdresser, and they gave her that. She loved it so much. So it is funny how you get these different looks. And
just another example of like, well, I would never think that I'm going to do this, but it looks kind of nice. You just never know. Step out of your comfort zone, people. All right, Ed, we're going to circle back to you real quick. Okay.
Your role in The Murder at Cheltenham Manor, which was our virtual, not live stream, it was our YouTube
television
week
show.
by week television show, that Lewis wrote. It is still available on YouTube for anyone who has not watched it. We are hoping to put it live on stage at some point in the near future. You had a very comedic kind of role, but there is a catchphrase that you coined that once you coined it in your filming, Lewis wrote it into as many episodes as he possibly could.
What was
Which
it?
was...
It was either something like, if you know what I mean, or if you don't mind.
If you know what I mean.
That sounds right. If you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yes, he played the Irish gardener.
Very suspicious Irish gardener.
But it's true. Like, I would write the script, and I would write one a week, and then we would film it. But then when I saw you do it, I was like, oh, that's his thing. So I wrote it into like every episode.
So I just said that without it being part of the script?
No, I think it was in the script originally. Oh. But I mean, if you know what I mean.
If you know what I mean.
I think it was the way you said it. We went back and watched that first episode and it was like, oh, that's funny.
And so that's an example of, it was just on the page, and you did something with it that then inspired me to keep it on the next few pages.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. That
was great fun filming that.
Yeah. Very interesting way to kind of get through the beginning of our quarantine pandemic.
That's also how we learned that he will never be in television because of how many he cannot keep a straight face. The minute that you hold the camera up, he starts like this. He starts giggling. It on the times that we were
All the
filming
bloopers,
together.
I'm sure.
Oh my
can't
gracious!
help it.
Yep.
Because then I think about how I shouldn't be laughing, and
And that
I'm
just
laughing.
makes you
Just
laugh more.
laughing
Yeah.
harder.
So we did touch a little bit earlier, but I want to circle back just so everyone at home knows how involved this is about the baking. So Allie really should have her own cupcake shop because and everyone who's watching will attest because most of you will have gotten them, I'm sure, at one point or another. But these cupcakes are top notch. And not only does the thought go into like, you know, what flavor profile does this person enjoy, and then the thought go into making them, but then they get dropped off at your doorstep as well.
Very secretly, very much so. Like a little bit of time would pass, and then I would go out to my front door, and there'd be a tray or a
Clandestine
tin of-
drop off.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that that give you an insight, not only into Allie's personality, but into the idea that we really do all care very much for one another, and it does feel like a family.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you about, Allie, is you were part of our Little Mermaid. So talk to us a little bit about the Healy experience. Now you're pretty sporty.
Okay, so when we first put them on the first time, we all just went. It was when we were at the park, and we were all just in the parking lot of DPAC, and it was like kind of sloped, and me and Jill and Lauren Brader were on the older end of the Murr sisters, and I remember like Natalie Chernikoff or we had, and Emily, I think. They were a lot younger, and they were just like, okay, here we go. So once they started testing it out, and then I took them home, and that was a little bit easier. When we did it on the stage with the boards, that was a little something. But then when we did it again at like here at the theater, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I kind of remembered what it was like on the Heelys, how it felt. But then it's a nice smooth surface.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed it. I've said a lot of times that it would be really fun to have them in school. I think the kids would get a really big kick out of it. Plus, it would make me be able to get places faster. Get down to the copier that's like across the school.
They're banned from your school now, right?
I don't know.
Wow.
I've never seen any kids with them, but
Okay.
my kids are pretty, like, our school is only kindergarten to third grade. So I don't know if kids even
Once you're
know
back-
about them.
Yeah.
Once you're back fully in, check with the principal.
Yeah, right?
We
But I
still
have to
some in your
install a
set.
ramp,
You can borrow 'em anytime.
like we did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was
That was,
terrifying at first,
But then fun,
but
right?
then so much fun.
All right, so we've come to the point where we're going to do our little James Lipton, and we're going to ask you these 10 questions.
Excellent.
They
First thing that comes to your mind.
They slightly vary from the originals, but all right.
What is your favorite musical of all time?
Crazy for you.
Les Mis.
What is your least favorite musical of all time?
In the Heights.
I don't know. I don't have as much of a wealth of knowledge.
Just don't say anything that will insult me.
No, no. That's well. I mean, I haven't known. I don't have the wealth and my history of musical theater that you do. So the shows that I've seen, I have genuinely liked for some reason or another.
All
So
right.
it's hard off the top of my head to think of one that I really don't like.
All right, we can circle back.
Sorry.
Or if that's your answer, that's
I'm
your
boring.
answer.
I'm sorry.
No. Okay, next question. What sound or noise do you love?
Rain. Easy. I'm a pluviophile. Love rain.
The crunch of feet in the snow.
Good one.
What sound or noise do you hate?
My alarm clock.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with that too. Yeah.
Allie's alarm clock.
It's a strong answer.
All right. What is your favorite word?
Crazy.
Preposterous.
Preposterous and crazy. What is your least favorite word?
Can't.
Goodbye.
Oh, both good ones.
Okay, I get the fun. What is your curse word of choice?
See, this is easy for me. I don't curse like ever, and I don't have.
So can I have two answers?
Yeah,
then?
go for it.
Eddie
you
gets
can
two
take
then.
mine.
And
Solid choices.
So Eddie compensates for Allie by having twice as many curses.
It's a balance. What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt? Anything in the world.
I originally was gonna say like a kids TV show host, but also just like a professional baker. I think that would be fun too. Now that we've been talking about baking,
Yeah.
I want to do more of it.
I always thought it would be fun to be a weatherman, a meteorologist.
Cool. And now Eddie Honan with the local
Yep.
weather.
Doom, doom, doom.
Is it going to snow
No,
tomorrow?
I'm going to be actually next winner of Survivor.
I've heard that.
Next
I've
career
heard.
choice. Let's do it. Is it me?
Yep.
Or what profession would you not like to have?
Anything that does with like dead bodies.
Okay.
I would probably say like coal miner. You know, I get claustrophobic.
Okay.
And the last one, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome.
He would say, "Hey, Mihal has All in the Family paused, so he's been waiting for you." Mihal's my dad, by the way.
Lovely answers. Thank you both so much for coming in and doing this today. It's always nice talking with you guys.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
And
thank you.
it's great for our audience to get to know you on more of a personal level. So thanks for joining us again for Spotlight on Stage with Eddie and Allie.
Thank you.